Is Spain at a dead end? The king now poised to send voters back to the polls for the second time in 6 months after the failure of coalition talks, the stalemate, the redo, as unprecedented as the players are new in a nation that is limping back from a battering during the financial crisis. Back in December, it was all of Europe that watched as new anti-establishment parties emerged, with the anti-austerity Podemos and the liberal anti-corruption crusading Ciudadanos challenging the mainstream center-left and center-right. But now you could ask, to what effect? If polls are right and the June 26 snap election delivers the same outcome once again, Spain could even see its first grand coalition between the center-right PP and the Socialists. If that's the case, what lessons for Spain and for other parts of Europe where the desire for change can also lead to unintended consequences? Is Spain's new gridlock and turmoil the shape of things to come across the continent? Today in the WENTE debate, we're looking at the Spanish Indecision. And with us, joining us from Madrid, Andrés Ortega, former policy advisor to Spain's previous socialist government. Many thanks for being with us from the Spanish capital.
Thanks to you. Thank you.
We're joined here in the studio by attorney and commentator Edward Salsas. Nice to see you again. And Didac Gutierrez Perez, research director for Opinion Institute via Voice. Welcome to both of you, gentlemen. The WENTE debate, where you can join the conversation on Facebook and Twitter, the hashtag F24debate. Yes, the Spanish are indeed venturing into uncharted waters, first with new parties entering parliament, and now, 6 months on, gridlock, the possibility that the outcome in June could be the same. Mark Thompson has more.
Heading back to the polls. After meeting the leaders of the country's major political parties, King Felipe announced new elections will be held in June.
It's obvious that repeating the elections is not the best option. It would have been much worse to form a government based on the proposals that the other parties have been discussing during the past few months. This would have been worse for Spain and the Spanish people.
Since last December's parliamentary elections, the leaders of Spain's political parties have tried to form various coalitions. Newcomers, the anti-austerity Podemos movement and the centrist Ciudadanos, brought an end to Spain's traditional two-party dominance in last year's elections.
The vote will be repeated because of the inability and unwillingness of Mr. Iglesias to lead the change along with me and Ciudadanos, and in that way to put an end to Mariano Rajoy's government.
Podemos party leader Pablo Iglesias agreed to ally with the Socialists, but not Ciudadanos, a position he's not willing to compromise on.
We will remain open to the Socialist Party because we think the future we hope for Spain will happen if we can reach an agreement. That's the direction we will continue in.
High unemployment, austerity measures and corruption scandals helped lead to the rise of Spain's new parties. The country has never had a governing national coalition, and analysts fear even the new elections might not break the political deadlock.
All right, let's go around the table once on the big issue that Mark Thompson was talking about in that report. I'll start with you, Andrés Ortega. Will it be an election for nothing? Will the outcome be the same?
The outcome could be the same, although I think it will depend on the movement of 15 seats out of 350 that will decide the elections. But it won't be a redo of the elections, because I think some things have changed in the months since the elections in December. First, the deficit is bigger than we thought. And all will have to explain how was this and how they're going to face it and what kind of cuts are they going to introduce. First, second, we had a whole series of new corruption scandals in these months and some things which were not very nice to see, as people and ministers having accounts in...
and yet, Andrés, we're seeing that the center-right Popular Party, according to the polls that we're seeing, would still be the #1 party if the election were held tomorrow.
Yes, it will be the number one party. There is a discussion who will be the number two, whether PSOE or Podemos with Izquierda Unida, and citizens. The problem is that among them, the PP and Ciudadanos are fighting for the same kind of electorate, the same kind of citizens, and PSOE and Podemos are fighting for the same kind of left-wing citizens, let's say. So I think we're going to see an election campaign very hard and very nasty. With the results, we don't know. I think it will depend mostly on the abstention on the right from the PP and on the left mainly from the PSOE and people who changed from Podemos to PSOE.
All right, so a few variables that could change, of course, the outcome. Edward Salsas, do you agree with what was just said that, well, to a large degree, it'll be how the economy looks in 6 months that'll determine whether or not it's a redo?
I don't believe that the economy it will be a key element in the decision of the voters. Corruption could be a key element. As our colleague was saying, there have been new corruption scandals in Spain, namely a very big corruption scandal in Valencia and a Ministry of Industry having to leave the government because of the Panama Papers. So I guess that the outcome in this second election will be similar from what we had in December, and everything will be played in 15, 20 seats that could move from one party to the other.
And we heard Andres Ortega say there are these two upstart parties, Ciudadanos, which could take some votes from the center-right PP, and Podemos, the anti-austerity party, which could take some votes from the Socialists.
Well, the polls, what the polls say is that the voters from the Socialist Party are moving to Ciudadanos. The Popular Party has a very faithful voting basis, so they are kind of at the ground of voters that they had. So they've never had less than what they got in December, and what we are seeing is that maybe the Socialists could lose some votes to Ciudadanos, and Podemos could have more seats, not because of their performance, but because they would merge with Izquierda Unida, which is another, it's the former Communist Party, that has 1.2 million votes. But because of the electoral legislation in Spain, they have very, very few seats. But if we merge the votes of Podemos with the votes of Izquierda Unida, they could get these extra seats in less populated areas where they could win 1 or 2 seats.
And we heard in that report that we saw at the outset, the leader of Podemos hint at a compromise. What's he getting at exactly?
Well, the game Pablo Iglesias is playing, the leader of Podemos, is basically to destroy the Socialist Party.
Really? Because he's talking about a coalition with them.
But because that's what he needs to say. But no, he has made no movement, no significant movement to reach an agreement with the Socialist Party. The Socialist Party, the committee of the party, decided that there were some red lines that should not be crossed by its leader, by Pedro Sánchez, and he hasn't crossed them. And one of them, for example, was a referendum in Catalonia and other regions that would ask for an independence referendum. Podemos is asking for this referendum. The Socialists will never agree to that. So he's saying that he wants to reach an agreement, but he's putting conditions that are impossible to be fulfilled by the Socialist Party.
All right, the emergence of Podemos and Ciudadanos indeed rattling the form. The center-right Popular Party of outgoing Prime Minister Mariano Rajoy, still the largest party, as we were saying, in Spain. The Socialists second. This is what Parliament looked like in 2011 and what it looked like after last December's vote. Opinion surveys, though, again, showing it could be the same outcome once again. Let me turn to you, Didac Gutierrez-Perez. And I want you to pick up on something that Edward Salsas just said about how the largest party, the PP of Mariano Rajoy, has a faithful following. How do the voters break down? Are there sort of, in terms of age, in terms of where the people come from, how does it work?
No, it's true that we have a very particular electorate in some of the biggest parties in Spain. But for me, the historical point here and what we saw in December was the emergence, and we were seeing that on the graph just before, the emergence of really two new parties breaking the system and making a very big entrance. So in a way, this was the historical moment that Spain lived in December, and these 6 months were a kind of a test, were a kind of a try of knowing if Spain was ready to act as a multi-partisan system or regime.
And do you agree with Edward when he's talking about the Podemos voters courting the Socialists and the Socialist voters courting the Ciudadanos?
Yes, a little bit, but again, for me, the important thing and the lesson of the last 6 months is like citizens wanted to see if parties in Spain were able to agree with each other. And coming to a new elections in just 2 months, for me, it's a failed test. It's a failed try. So,
and what does that say about Spain?
Maybe that or Spain wasn't ready, or maybe the parties weren't ready. In fact, there's a big problem now. It's like citizens seem to be ready for a multi-party and coalition government, and parties are not. So how this will affect the results in 2 months' time, I really don't know.
So politicians are behind the curve, even the ones from these new upstart parties.
I think that the lessons of the negotiations of the last 6 months show that. Ciudadanos moved very quickly, and in fact, I would say, was the one clearly changing their agenda. They said, we will not pact, we will not negotiate with one of the big ones. And in fact, they moved quite quickly. So they showed a little bit this coalition essence, which in fact was the new forms that they were bringing to Spanish politics. Podemos and the Socialists and the PP were probably not at the same path than the citizens and that some of the parties in the parliament.
Reactions on the hashtag F24 debate. Of course, the problem is that the result will be the same as the first round. Then what? Andres Ortega, your thoughts?
My thought is that the major problem is Rajoy himself. He has become very unpopular, but he wants to stay. He doesn't want to be the only prime minister or president of the government of the Spanish democracy not to repeat. No? And because he has a division within his party, he wants to stay. But I think if he had changed...
But how could the problem just be Rajoy when Mr. Sanchez had more than ample time to try to cobble together a coalition?
No, but Rajoy, Sanchez doesn't want to govern with Rajoy, and Ciudadanos doesn't want to govern with Rajoy because of the corruption scandals that he has presided over the last 15 years, and which have erupted very clearly in the last 6 months. And also because I think in Spain, that's something which happens usually when there is a political change, there is a generational renewal. And Rajoy is seen as the old generation, and the rest are representatives of a new generation. And also, I think that another difference, the same thing is happening all over Europe, and the same kind of things with differences. For example, in France, they have Le Pen for the same reasons, or for reasons similar to the ones for which we have Podemos, if I can make the comparison, but we have no far right in Spain, which is something which I think is very good. No?
Do you agree, Edward Salsas, that the problem is not the parties, but the man, Rajoy?
I wouldn't say that Rajoy is the only problem that the Popular Party has. The Popular Party has been in power for a long time, maybe not in the government. This is the first mandate of Rajoy, but many people in this party have been in power in regions, in cities. So there's this establishment that has been ruling Spain, maybe not from the top, but in the mid-levels, and the party itself needs to renew.
And do you agree with Didac Gutierrez's point that the whole of the political class has failed in the exercise of trying to build a coalition?
Well, I would not be as categorical as him, because I think that Rajoy benefits from this situation. What Rajoy wanted is that nothing changes. What Rajoy wanted was that the new parties discuss with the Socialist Party and show to the people that actually they couldn't agree. They couldn't agree with the very, very basic rules to compose minimum government. And he's saying to his voters, not to the other voters, but to his voters, to people that at one point have voted the Popular Party, well, I am the one who can ensure the continuity of the I would say of the state, not of the government, but of the state. The only person capable to provide some stability.
All right, that could play in his favor. We're going to pick up on those points. When we come back, you're watching the France 24 debate.